Life sometimes presents us with relationships that are complex, painful, and hard to navigate. We become emotionally entangled with others in ways that can leave us feeling drained, confused, or even broken. But the truth is, emotional detachment is not about abandoning someone else, nor is it about shutting off our hearts. It's about reclaiming your inner peace, your sense of self, and your emotional well-being. Today, we're going to explore 5 powerful rules on how to emotionally detach from someone and how to do it in a way that honors your growth and your emotions. When we experience emotional pain, especially from a relationship, it can feel like a weight that's impossible to lift. Whether it's from a breakup, a friendship that has ended, or even a falling out with a family member, the anguish can feel overwhelming. The heartache often leads us to ask questions like, why did this happen? What did I do wrong? And how can I fix this? It's natural to want to make sense of the pain. But one of the most important lessons we can learn is that this pain does not have to define us. It's easy to let emotional pain consume us, to allow it to shape our identity, and to believe that we are somehow less worthy or incomplete because of it. When we cling to the hurt, we carry it around like a heavy burden, letting it dictate our thoughts, our actions, and our self-worth. We start to see ourselves through the lens of the pain rather than the full, complex human beings we are. We might tell ourselves, I'm broken, or I'll never be able to move on, when in reality, those thoughts are just temporary emotional responses to a situation that is yet to fully unfold. The pain we feel doesn't have to be the narrative we live by. Acknowledging the pain is the first step toward detachment. It means recognizing the hurt for what it is, a reaction to a situation, not an eternal part of our identity. Pain is an emotional response to an event, not a label you must wear forever. When we allow ourselves to fully feel the pain without judgment or resistance, we create space for healing. It's important to give yourself permission to grieve, to feel disappointed, to be angry, and to feel lost. These emotions are normal responses, but they are not who you are. They don't make you weak, unworthy, or incapable of moving forward. In fact, they show you how much you care and how deeply you invested in the relationship. But while it's crucial to feel, it's also essential not to linger there. The longer you let the pain define you, the more power it has over your life. When you see yourself only through the lens of the hurt, you're missing out on the opportunity to learn, grow, and find strength in the face of adversity. Emotional detachment begins when you recognize that the hurt, while valid, does not have to control the course of your life. Think of it like a storm. A storm can be fierce, destructive, and frightening, but it doesn't last forever. After the rain, the sky clears and the earth begins to heal. The pain you feel may be intense and consuming in the moment, but just like a storm, it will pass. By allowing yourself to feel it fully without denying or suppressing it, you can begin to process the emotions and eventually release them. To detach emotionally from someone, you need to stop holding on to the belief that the pain has any power over you. The pain doesn't define your value, your worth, or your future. You do. You are the one who gets to decide how you move forward. Your response to the pain is what shapes you. You are allowed to feel hurt, but you are also allowed to rise above it and continue growing into the person you are meant to be. When we choose not to let pain define us, we open the door to healing, to self-discovery, and to greater emotional freedom. We can embrace the understanding that, while the pain may never completely disappear, we have the strength and the capacity to move through it, learn from it, and ultimately let go of it. By acknowledging the pain without letting it define you, you begin to reclaim your power and take the first steps toward emotional detachment, peace, and personal growth. Setting boundaries is often seen as an act of self-preservation, and it absolutely is. but it's also an act of compassion, not just for yourself, but for the other person involved. Boundaries are a way of protecting your emotional health while still maintaining respect and empathy. Far too often, people misunderstand boundaries as walls that cut others off and create distance. But in reality, healthy boundaries are about creating space where both parties can thrive without resentment, manipulation, or misunderstanding. When you're emotionally attached to someone, especially if that connection is one-sided or unhealthy, it can be difficult to imagine creating distance. You may fear that setting boundaries will hurt the other person, or even worse, end the relationship altogether. But boundaries don't have to come from a place of anger or rejection. They come from a place of love for yourself and love for the other person. Because when you don't honor your own emotional needs, it's impossible to show up fully and authentically for someone else. Setting boundaries with compassion means being clear and firm about your needs while also maintaining kindness and respect. It's not about punishing or distancing yourself out of spite. It's about recognizing what is and isn't acceptable in your life and communicating that in a way that protects your well-being. This may mean having difficult conversations, and yes, it may require some discomfort in the short term. But in the long run, it will foster healthier dynamics and give both people the space they need to grow and evolve. You might worry about how the other person will react to your boundaries. Will they feel rejected? Will they push back or try to manipulate you? These are natural concerns, but it's important to remember that your boundaries are not a reflection of your feelings toward the other person. They're a reflection of your respect for yourself. Setting boundaries is an expression of self-care, not an expression of unkindness. The fact that you're creating healthy emotional space isn't about saying, I don't care about you or I don't love you. It's about saying, I love and respect myself enough to protect my emotional health, and I need space to heal. When we set boundaries with compassion, we show up as our authentic selves, and we invite others to do the same. This means being honest with ourselves about what we need and being brave enough to communicate those needs, even if it's uncomfortable. It's easy to let fear guide our decisions, to avoid confrontation or difficult conversations. But the longer we avoid setting boundaries, the more we allow others to dictate the terms of our emotional well-being. Over time, this can lead to burnout, resentment, and frustration. It's also important to understand that boundaries aren't a one-time conversation, they are an ongoing practice. Just as relationships evolve, so too do the boundaries that are necessary to keep them healthy. You may need to adjust your boundaries as circumstances change, and that's okay. The key is being proactive in taking care of your emotional health and consistently honoring your needs, even if it means making adjustments along the way. Setting boundaries with compassion is a form of self-respect and self-love. It is one of the most profound ways we can honor both ourselves and the people we care about. By making the decision to set boundaries, you are not closing off to love or to connection. Instead, you're opening the door to more authentic, healthy, and sustainable relationships. Through this process, you will find that you not only protect your emotional well-being, but also create space for deeper, more meaningful connections. Embracing the power of self-worth is one of the most transformative actions you can take in your journey toward emotional detachment. It's easy to lose sight of your value when you're emotionally invested in someone else. Whether it's a romantic relationship, a friendship, or even a family bond, it's easy to start measuring your worth based on how the other person perceives you or treats you. This is where the danger lies. When you place your sense of worth outside of yourself in the hands of someone else, you are essentially giving away your power. The key to emotional detachment is reclaiming that power and recognizing your value for who you are, not for how others see you or how they behave toward you. Self-worth is not something that can be given to you by another person. It is something that comes from within. It's about knowing that you are worthy of love, respect, and peace, regardless of external circumstances. When you understand your intrinsic worth, you begin to understand that your happiness, your peace, and your sense of self cannot be dictated by the actions or behaviors of others. Your self-worth is not contingent on approval or validation from someone else. It is built on a foundation of self-acceptance, inner confidence, and the understanding that you are enough just as you are. To embrace the power of self-worth, you must first recognize and challenge the beliefs that diminish it. Often we internalize messages from our past experiences, relationships, or society that tell us we are not enough. We might have been made to feel inadequate or unworthy by someone we trusted or loved. These past wounds can leave lasting scars if we let them, making it harder to see ourselves clearly and to step into our own power. But the moment you realize that you do not need anyone's approval to validate your worth, you start to reclaim your sense of self. Building self-worth is a practice, not a one-time achievement. It takes time to shift the narrative from self-doubt to self-love, but it begins with simple, everyday acts of self-care and self-compassion. This could mean speaking kindly to yourself, acknowledging your strengths and achievements, or simply giving yourself permission to prioritize your needs without guilt. It's about treating yourself with the same love and respect that you would show to someone you deeply care about. As you begin to embrace the power of your own worth, you will start to see the world through a different lens. You will no longer allow others' actions or opinions to shake your sense of self. Instead, you will be rooted in your own truth, knowing that your value does not change based on someone else's behavior. This shift in perspective is crucial when emotionally detaching from someone. It helps you realize that your worth is not tied to the relationship. Whether the relationship continues or ends, your value remains constant and unshakable. When you know your worth, you no longer settle for less than you deserve. You stop tolerating disrespect, mistreatment, or unhealthy dynamics. You begin to demand the respect, kindness, and love that align with who you truly are. This doesn't mean you become rigid or unwilling to compromise. It means that you no longer allow yourself to be in situations that diminish your sense of self, and instead, you create space for relationships that nurture and uplift you. Embracing your self-worth is a journey of reclaiming your personal power. It's about recognizing that you are deserving of the love, respect, and peace that you seek. When you do this, you create a solid foundation within yourself that is unaffected by the storms of external relationships. This newfound sense of self allows you to emotionally detach in a way that is both empowering and liberating, enabling you to move forward with confidence and grace, knowing that you are enough, no matter what. The need for closure is one of the most persistent and sometimes overwhelming emotions we experience when a relationship ends or changes. We want answers. We want to understand why things didn't work out, why someone behaved a certain way, or why a situation unfolded the way it did. We believe that closure will bring peace, that having the final conversation or receiving that last word will allow us to move on. But the truth is, closure is not always something we can attain, and often it is not something we need to fully heal or move forward. Letting go of the need for closure is not about avoiding the pain or pretending that things are okay when they're not. It's about acknowledging that closure doesn't always come from external validation or finality. It comes from within. The peace you seek after a painful relationship or situation is not found in the answers you may never get, but in your ability to accept that not everything will make sense or fit neatly into a narrative. Sometimes closure is simply the act of accepting what is and choosing to release what is beyond your control. It's easy to get stuck in a cycle of what ifs and why didn't this happen. We replay conversations, wonder if we missed signs, or obsess over how the relationship ended. We convince ourselves that if we could just understand the why, we'd feel better, that the pain would go away. However, the need for closure is often a trap that keeps us tethered to the past. We fixate on seeking something external to validate our emotions or experiences, but in doing so, we forget that healing comes from within. Letting go of the need for closure means accepting that you may never get the answers you crave, and that's okay. Sometimes people won't be able or willing to give you the closure you need. They may never offer an explanation, or the answers they provide might not bring you peace. Waiting for external closure only holds you in a state of limbo, where you're constantly looking backward instead of moving forward. The truth is, closure is not something someone else can give you, it's something you create for yourself. When we let go of the need for closure, we free ourselves from the constant emotional pull of the past. We stop seeking validation from someone else's words or actions, and instead, we start to trust our own ability to heal. You get to decide when you are ready to move forward, regardless of whether you have all the answers. You are not obligated to wait for someone else to provide the final piece of the puzzle. Instead, trust that you have all you need within you to move on and to create the closure that aligns with your journey. In practice, letting go of the need for closure might look like forgiving someone without an apology or moving forward from a relationship without receiving the last word. It might mean accepting that some things will remain unclear, and that's a natural part of life. There is power in embracing the uncertainty and choosing to focus on what you can control: your healing, your growth, and your future. By letting go of the need for closure, you also begin to release the emotional weight of unfinished business. You stop holding on to the hope that the past can be corrected or that you can change someone else's behavior. Instead, you come to terms with the fact that the past is done, and the only thing you can change is your present and future. This realization allows you to heal with grace, to detach emotionally without carrying unnecessary baggage, and to reclaim your inner peace. Closure is an internal process. It's about finding peace within yourself, even if the situation never resolves in the way you envisioned. By letting go of the need for closure, you choose to trust that your story is still unfolding, and you are in charge of writing the next chapter. Choosing yourself every single day is one of the most powerful acts of self-love and self-care you can practice. It is about prioritizing your emotional well-being, your mental health, and your happiness, even when life demands your attention elsewhere. It is the understanding that your peace, your joy, and your personal growth should be your top priority, not just in the big moments, but in the everyday choices you make. Too often, we get caught up in the needs and expectations of others. We bend over backwards to please people, to meet their needs, or to maintain a certain image or connection. We believe that by putting others first, we are being selfless, or that we are showing love and loyalty. But the truth is, when we neglect our own needs and desires, we begin to lose touch with ourselves. We become drained, overwhelmed, and disconnected from our own truth. The more we prioritize others at the expense of our own well-being, the harder it becomes to show up fully for ourselves and for them. Choosing yourself every single day means making the conscious decision to care for your own emotional health and well-being, regardless of external pressures. It's about acknowledging that you cannot pour from an empty cup. If you are constantly giving to others without filling your own cup, you will eventually run dry. But when you choose to put yourself first, whether that means taking a step back when you're overwhelmed, saying no to things that drain you, or taking time to nurture your own growth and happiness, you give yourself the energy and strength to continue showing up for the people and things that matter most. This decision isn't always easy. There will be days when choosing yourself feels selfish, when you feel guilty for not doing more for others, or when you feel like you're letting people down. However, it's important to remember that choosing yourself is not about disregarding others. It's about creating the emotional space to be the best version of yourself so that you can show up for others in a way that is healthy and sustainable. You cannot give your best if you are constantly running on empty. When you choose yourself, you are actually choosing to show up as your most authentic, energized, and loving self. Choosing yourself every day also involves setting boundaries. It's about recognizing that your time, energy, and emotional resources are finite, and you get to decide how they are spent. It's okay to say no when something doesn't align with your needs or values, even if it's difficult. It's okay to protect your peace by stepping away from situations or relationships that drain you. In fact, this is one of the most important acts of self-love. Knowing that you deserve to be surrounded by people and circumstances that uplift, support, and nourish you. Another part of choosing yourself is taking time for your own growth. It's about dedicating moments in your day to pursue your passions, to invest in your personal development, and to do the things that bring you joy. Whether it's reading a book, practicing mindfulness, exercising, or working toward a personal goal, these acts of self-care allow you to remain grounded in your own journey and remind you that you matter. These small, everyday choices reinforce the idea that you are worthy of your time, attention, and love. Choosing yourself every day is not about being perfect or always getting it right. It's about understanding that your well-being matters and that by prioritizing yourself, you create the emotional capacity to give more fully to the things and people that matter most. By doing this, you begin to move through life with greater confidence, clarity, and strength, knowing that you have made the choice to love yourself first. And in doing so, you become the best version of yourself, ready to show up for others in a way that is both healthy and sustainable. Practicing radical acceptance of what you cannot change is one of the most profound tools you can develop in your emotional journey. It involves fully embracing reality as it is without resistance or judgment, especially when things unfold in ways we didn't anticipate or hope for. We often find ourselves locked in an internal struggle, fighting against circumstances, people, or events that we cannot control. This resistance can create unnecessary suffering, leaving us feeling stuck and frustrated. Radical acceptance is the key to letting go of that struggle and finding peace in the midst of uncertainty, discomfort, or loss. Radical acceptance is the ability to acknowledge and accept the present moment exactly as it is, without wishing it were different. This doesn't mean that you condone or approve of everything that happens, nor does it mean you should passively resign yourself to things that are harmful or toxic. Rather, it's about recognizing that there are situations beyond your control, and by accepting them, you free yourself from the grip of anger, regret, or frustration. When you accept the reality of a situation, you stop fighting against it, which opens the door to healing and clarity. We often have the desire to change what happened or to rewind time. When things don't go as we planned, whether it's the end of a relationship, a missed opportunity, or an event that has forever altered the course of our lives, our instinct is to resist. We wish for things to be different. We replay the situation in our minds, and we beat ourselves up over what we could have done differently. This resistance drains our energy and prevents us from moving forward. Radical acceptance doesn't mean you approve of the situation or that you are okay with the pain it caused. It simply means that you recognize that the past cannot be undone, and the only way out is through. Radical acceptance involves recognizing that life is not always fair, that not everything is within your control, and that people's actions or behaviors are theirs own. It asks you to separate yourself from the outcome, to release the idea that you can fix everything or everyone, and to trust that you are strong enough to face whatever comes your way. Instead of spending energy wishing things were different, you focus that energy on how you can move forward. Acceptance allows you to find peace in the discomfort, to feel the pain without letting it define you or control you. This practice doesn't mean you stop striving for change where it is possible or that you should suppress your emotions. It's okay to feel sadness, anger, frustration, or disappointment when things don't go as expected. However, radical acceptance teaches you to feel those emotions without getting stuck in them. It means acknowledging that the emotion is part of the experience but does not have to dominate your life. When you let go of the need to change what you cannot control, you free yourself from unnecessary suffering. You make space for growth, for healing, and for change where it matters within yourself. You become more resilient, more adaptable, and more at peace with the unpredictable nature of life. Radical acceptance also allows you to practice self-compassion, recognizing that as a human being, it is okay to not have all the answers or control over every situation. Practicing radical acceptance allows you to find a sense of calm in the chaos, to move through difficult moments with grace, and to trust that you have the strength to navigate whatever comes next. It doesn't erase the pain or make the journey easier, but it empowers you to walk through it with a clearer, more open heart, ready to embrace what is rather than what you wish could have been. It's about surrendering to what you cannot change and trusting that, in doing so, you'll find the peace you seek. Releasing the narrative of what could have been is one of the most liberating steps you can take in your emotional healing and growth. It's easy to get trapped in the idea of an alternate reality, imagining how things might have turned out differently if only you had made a different choice, said something else, or acted in a different way. The what could have been narrative often lives in the realm of regret, missed opportunities, and longing for a past that can never be rewritten. But holding on to this narrative prevents us from fully embracing the present and moving forward with clarity and purpose. It keeps us stuck in a cycle of self-blame and dissatisfaction, robbing us of the peace and growth that can come from acceptance and forward motion. The problem with the what could have been narrative is that it is based on a fictional version of events. It imagines a perfect scenario where everything falls into place as we wish, where mistakes are avoided and outcomes are ideal. But this version of reality is often a projection of our desires and fears, not the truth of what actually happened. The truth is that we can only move forward with the information and experiences we've gathered, not the imaginary possibilities of a different past. By clinging to the what could have been, we are rejecting the present moment and the opportunity to learn from what did happen. We are choosing to live in a place of fantasy instead of facing the reality in front of us. Releasing this narrative means accepting that the past cannot be changed, no matter how much we wish it could be. We must understand that every choice we made, every step we took, and every relationship we had led us to where we are today. This does not mean that we should ignore or dismiss our pain, but it does mean that we stop holding on to the belief that our lives could have turned out perfectly if only things had been different. Life is not meant to unfold in a linear or predictable way. There is no such thing as a perfect path, and the detours, mistakes, and unexpected turns are often the very things that shape us into the people we are meant to become. When we release the narrative of what could have been, we free ourselves from the constant loop of regret. We stop focusing on what we cannot control and start embracing the lessons we've learned along the way. Each decision we made, whether it felt right at the time or not, brought us to this moment. And in this moment, we have the power to choose how we move forward. If we keep looking back at what might have been, we miss out on the beauty of what is. This doesn't mean we stop reflecting on the past or learning from our experiences. Reflection is healthy and necessary for growth. But there's a difference between learning from the past and becoming consumed by it. The key to moving forward is not in wishing things had been different, but in accepting that what happened was part of our journey. There's a certain peace that comes from surrendering to the fact that life doesn't always follow the script we envision. It unfolds in unpredictable, sometimes painful, but often transformative ways. Releasing the what could have been narrative also means embracing the reality of imperfection. We all make mistakes, and no one's life is free of missteps or regret. But these experiences are what help us grow, refine our values, and learn resilience. The more we let go of the idea that our past could have been different, the more we allow ourselves to be open to the future. We free ourselves to pursue new opportunities, build new relationships, and create new stories without the weight of past regrets holding us back. Releasing the narrative of what could have been is an act of self-compassion and freedom. It allows us to honor our past without being chained to it. It gives us the power to accept what is and to move forward with clarity and hope. When we let go of the fantasy of what might have been, we open ourselves up to the infinite possibilities of what can be. And in doing so, we give ourselves the space to create a future that is aligned with who we truly are.